Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Pash On podcast. Let's get started with your host, Brian Pash.
Hi, this is Brian Pash, and welcome to another exciting podcast interview. Today, we have a team from Equifax on the line. We're going to talk about, well, some of my favorite topics, CDPs, data enhancements, fraud, and just helping dealers do more. So we have Deana Glenn, Brian Epro on the line. Thanks for being part of this interview. Deana, I'm going to start with you. For years, maybe dealers looked at Equifax and saying, hey, I don't really know how I could do business with them. You know, they're tied into maybe my finance apps or some credit checking, but it really came down to, it was hard for them because they didn't have a data platform. They didn't have a place to store, update, change data. The DMS was not built for that. Is this a new renaissance for the relationships you're having at Tier 3 and the data services that you've been offering, you know, Fortune 5,000 companies for years?
Absolutely, Brian. And thank you for having us. I would say that one of the ways, everybody looks at Equifax as just this 100-plus-year-old, credit bureau. And we're so much more than that. And we're now getting that opportunity to work with the Tier 3 and helping them understand how they can enable and take what's been that kind of, I'll say, offline DMS for all practical purposes, and really how to activate that. So we are working with them in all streams of areas in terms of trying to clean that data up. So we do data hygiene. We're creating single customer views with identity resolution techniques. We're doing data enrichment. So there's so much opportunity to take that DMS, cleanse it, activate it, enrich it, so that they can then market and engage with consumers in the way they want to be engaged with.
Right on point. And Brian, excellent first name, by the way. I just want to start off with that. I really love that. But as I've been writing about CDPs now for over 2 years, it's not that dealers didn't know that their data was dirty, but they didn't have a way to really push updates in the DMS, right? It was really a closed environment. Some dealers were told, well, that was the data the customer gave you when they transacted. It's sacred. You can't touch it. But yet, outside of automotive, having the most current address, the most accurate phone and email, knowing a little bit more about where the customer is in their life cycle is table stakes. Brian, from your perspective, are dealers who are investing now in a customer data management platform reaching out, and what are they asking for? Because what I'm finding out is they don't even know what to ask for.
Yeah, that's an interesting question, Brian. What we're experiencing is that it's the CDP vendors and our CDP partners who are coming to us asking us for the hygiene. And the reason why is you have, there's a level of understanding at the CDP vendor level where you can't enhance dirty data. So dealers are saying, I want this enhanced data. I want these other, incredible data sets that you're offering me as part of your CDP, or that I can connect to and provide better experiences for customers. And the learning curve everybody was on is that the vendors went in and found that the data was a nightmare, right? And as an example, our data requires a name and an address in order to match to. If you're matching against just an email address or a phone number and that's it, it's very low fidelity, right?
Right.
So with the data sets that we have, it requires a name and address. So as the CDP providers came up the learning curve of the needing hygiene, so did Equifax. At first, we were saying, hey, just use our data to enhance your data sets. What we realized, though, is we had to marry that with the actual hygiene process and the identity process up front. So now what we're doing is we say, listen, we're going to clean the data first, and then we're going to enhance the data right up front. So the dealers may not ask for the hygiene piece of it. The partners who are providing the data services know that hygiene has to be the first step.
And you bring up a good point, and I'm not talking out of school here because I really want all the CDP platforms to succeed. everyone's trying to do their best. But recently I made some calls around and I'm asking people like, hey, what are you doing for data hygiene? Like, yeah, we're doing data hygiene. I'm like, no, you can't do that to me. What are you doing with the data? And honestly, then I got some different answers. Well, we're working on that. What does that mean? We're working on that. It's like, well, we're working with companies like Equifax to build a process. And I said, hey, listen, try to be as transparent as you can with dealers, because what is super important is that dealers have confidence that their 7-10 years of data are being handled properly, unified. I don't think dealers understand this kind of individual and household keys, as far as identity resolution. I don't think they understand how accurate and how often data goes bad. But I'll give you a few examples. When we looked at the ownership of vehicles over a 7-year period, over 40% of the vehicles were no longer owned by that person. When we looked at dealers' DMS, typically 40 to 50% are missing a mobile phone, because historically people weren't asking for it. Oh, maybe it's not the right thing to ask for. But when you think about, hey, we're loading our data to Google and Facebook, who needs phone numbers for customer match or updated emails for customer match. When you think of dealers and how much direct mail they put out, Brian and Deana, right? There could be 50% waste in direct mail, with duplicate pieces going to same person, people who've moved out of state, people who no longer own the car. Deana, this is kind of mind-blowing, right? Because at, let's just say, minimum of $1 a piece, but really it could be $2 a piece, and the average dealer probably has 30 to 40,000 people in their DMS. And there are dealers who are doing direct mail every month.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it gets kind of crazy, but as you said, dealers didn't have a framework on how to get this regular data hygiene. I'm glad to hear that you're working with the CDP vendors. Is there any value engineering or anything you've come up with the team on trying to help dealers understand the value of accurate data and cost savings or effectiveness in reaching? I've been trying different models. I'm not sure what the right model is, but it seems to me for every dollar spent in data hygiene, it's almost like a 10x return. I don't know how you are describing that with your internal partners. How would you answer that? How much the data hygiene isn't expensive. That's not the piece, but it's a process. Why should they go through that process, Deana? I guess we have to get more dealers to get off the mat and get into action. I'm not sure what the KPI is going to be.
Yeah, and everybody, depending on, and we structure deals in a lot of different ways depending on how the partnership is going to be. But I would say that for the costing around this and the benefit, I think you hit on some really great notes there, Brian, in terms of the waste, right? So some of the analysis we've done as well shows that there can be 30 to 40% duplication for individuals in there. And to your point, when you think about householding, it's so important to be able to look at who's in a household so that you're not sending everybody in a household the same mail piece.
Right.
So in terms of if you're reducing right off the bat 30% of the file from duplication, and you're netting down the households on top of that, you can easily probably make the general consensus here that we are going to be saving 50% on our marketing spend. But then you kind of have to take it to the next level and say, but if I'm able to also understand who's in market, who may have just recently bought a vehicle, because we've also started to integrate a lot of VIN data in some of our offerings so that you not only have a single customer view, you have a vehicle view, a vehicle identity, which is something we discovered recently with the CDPs, that you can't just make an identity around a consumer or their household. You also need to look at that vehicle as an identity. Where is it gone? Who has that vehicle now? And so looking at, I think, all those pieces holistically, cost savings easily in my personal opinion, can easily exceed, 50%. But I know that I'm just making something very general, around like direct mail. You have to think about email, brand advertising, all those pieces. So what's the delta or the KPI? Is it a 10x benefit, ROI? We haven't put our, I don't think we've actually sat down with a partner to be able to kind of work through those details, because usually they won't share that in terms of their cost and investment. But there's definitely something there, right?
Yeah, and I'm working on it, and I hope at the Modern Retailing Conference to share some initial observations. I know your team will be there. This is a very important conference because now we're well 2 years into this discussion, and people have stepped up. Brian, one of the other things we don't really realize is that dealers email a lot, and they'll take data out of their CRM, DMS, give it to an email vendor. But here's what they don't know. Those email vendors aren't sending emails to a relatively large percentage. It could be north of 20%, could be 25%, because the email on record is fraudulent. It's a known spam trap. It has other warning signals. And I've been asking dealers, hey, do you get reports from your email vendor on how many emails they didn't even want to send out? And they're like, no. Do you get a report on how many emails were undeliverable? No. And if you did, would you have any process to fix it? And they're like, no. So Brian, I think dealers know in the past they could buy an in-market shopper list from you. They could also partner with you to deploy some marketing, but it was always like a use case project, use case. But now that dealers have a CDP, you can be updating their CDP on a regular basis to get these in-market shopper signals into the CDP to allow them to deploy marketing, to build different audiences. We can't do that to the DMS, and the CRM wasn't built for this, right? So to me, it seems like the smarter dealer groups must be working with you with a secure API integration with their CDPs to, on a use case basis, continually keep their data up to date with the unique insights that your company has. Am I getting that right behind the scenes? And I know you can't name names, but these are the conversations I'm hearing. Like, Brian, which data partners should I be considering to enhance my first party data?
Yeah, and I mean, that's actually a great question, because you have to also you have to understand the scale of a company like Equifax, right? Like the way, we always describe ourselves, we're a mega aggregator of data, right? So there's just massive amounts of data coming in on a daily basis that then gets normalized and categorized correctly and sent back out. The way to think about it, so it goes beyond just obviously email addresses, right? The reality is, but email, you asked your question about helping dealers understand why hygiene is important in updating their data sets are important, right? Well, most people have multiple email addresses.
Yeah.
And so what does it mean if I submit a lead to you with one email address and then I buy the car under another email address? It means that I don't know if my marketing is working. That's one key thing, right?
Right.
So we have up to 10 email addresses that we see in somebody's in your record in our data set. We can say, hey, this guy Pash, he used this email address, but he bought the car under this email address, and that was the marketing you were doing over here. So that actually worked. So keep doing that and do less of the stuff that doesn't work, right? Yep. So that's the first thing. But the second thing, what I always advise people is you have to think about your database as a living organism. It absolutely is. It's made up of living people, right? Living people change their information. And what's actually ironic about that is people die too, right? So one of the things that we do is, the first thing that we look at is, hey, is this guy still alive or not, right? Yes or no. That saves you a lot of money right there. So it's those little easy pennies that you can pick up just by doing the core basic functionality of, is this guy alive? Is this still his address? But the way that helps a dealer make money, right, is, a thing that we help a lot of our partners with now is lead reanimation. And lead reanimation used to mean, hey, somebody submitted a lead 6 months ago. We're going to try to get them to come back in and consider buying a car. We have data that not only do we have that person's identity, but we also have the fact that they're actually back in market. And this could be from 3 or 4 years ago. right? So they submitted a lead from you to you 3 years
Yep.
ago, never bought a car from you, but they probably bought somewhere else. We can see that they've now re-entered the market. But the first question with that 4-year-old data is, listen, how much of this is still good? You know, I've worked at Equifax for 4 years, right? 5 years ago, I had a different corporate email address. So you may be reaching out to the wrong person at the wrong address if you don't update that database constantly.
So this brings up a great point. I'm fascinated with all the use cases. I know that when a dealer comes to Equifax and enhances their data, right? Fills in the missing emails, cell phone numbers. When that data then is tried to be used in a Facebook, a walled garden, Google and Facebook, I've seen match rates go from 35% to 70%. So just there, you're reaching your customers. But Dean, I hear, listen, anytime something good is changing, there's always people who are, raining on the parade. And I heard something the other day from an executive, and I almost fell off my chair. I said, hey, for your CDP, who's your data enhancement? It's like, I don't trust any of them. I'm like, hold on, these are billion-dollar companies that power credit, house mortgages, financial offers, loans. Like, they really have accurate data. Nah, I tested them, and I'd rather just ask the customer to update their data. And I'm like, so Deana, help. If a dealer knows they have no data hygiene, and every day that goes by, people move, people die, their emails changes, the people make up fake emails just to fill a field in the DMS, whatever. And I'm telling you that the lift in this data hygiene, and I'm going to be presenting at MRC some of these findings, they're mind-blowing. And yet there's some people that would say, well, Equifax doesn't have accurate data. I'm not saying they said that. I'm saying that the credit bureaus, like, yeah, all of their data is kind of half-ass. What would you say to that dealer who somehow someone got in their head that their crappy data is just as good as enhanced data?
Yeah, great question. I know that we get a lot of that in terms of, hey, I just want to use my first party data. What's in my DMS? I don't trust any third party enrichment, hygiene. I don't need any of that. What a consumer gives me is good enough. Well, we all know, and we've done plenty of research on our side to understand that, unfortunately, people do not either tell the truth or, and maybe sometimes they put down information that's wrong unknowingly. But we find out a lot of time that the information is kind of garbage in a lot for whatever reason. And so if you're only depending on what's in your DMS, you're kind of, and hopefully not offending anybody listening to this, but you're putting your head in the sand, right? And you're missing out on that opportunity to really understand who are my best customers, who's the market, how can I grow market share and be competitive, right? There's no opportunity for you to really, I'd say, sophisticatedly grow your business while also being mindful of, where are the opportunities and where am I, probably losing business and things like. Another thing is to consider is, if I'm not doing any kind of data hygiene and I'm just taking what a consumer is sending me, you got to think of things like fraud. You're going to have people that are going to come through that pipe understanding that you're not doing anything, or whether they know it or not. But there's going to be opportunities for the bad guys to get in the front door if you're not doing any kind of data hygiene or authentication or identity resolution. So there's a lot of risk, I would say, to that dealer if you're not doing any kind of data hygiene. If nothing else, at least protect your business from a fraud perspective, because we all know what the cost of one stolen vehicle is, or one vehicle where somebody gives a fake ID, does a test drive and never comes back. So there's a lot of opportunity there for risk.
Yeah,
Brian.
One stat. I'm working with a dealer group, say 70 something stores, in a quarter, just one quarter, in a 90-day period. About 35,000 vehicles were no longer owned by the people that the dealership sold it to. Now, let's just do little costs. This is a 90-day window. If you said, hey, over that 90-day window, these people probably got, so let's just use 35,000, $2 a piece. They got at least one or two mail pieces. There's $70,000 or more. And money put against all of those people and hoping to get them in on equity, but they no longer own the car, or get them on a recall or a trade. And then you say, well, how much is a data hygiene? You say, well, it's a few grand. It's like, why aren't you doing this thing? It's a real thing. I can't encourage dealers enough that investing in a CDP is a no-brainer when you realize how valuable your customers are, how many people are slipping through the cracks, how many emails aren't being delivered, how many people are not matched on Google or Facebook. I could keep on going. How many people have moved out of state and still getting service coupons? Brian, you were going to say something about the opportunity for dealers and, operating more profitably. I mean, it's hard being a car dealer in this economy, man. They need all the help they can get to save money.
Yeah, and it's what I wanted to say to just to pile on to what Deanna was saying is what we talked a little bit about, the evolution of the CDP, the evolution of Equifax's view of the data and how in data hygiene, how it's part of so there's hygiene and enhancement, right? But there's also authentication. That's what we're evolving to now, right? And what I mean by that is, what if you could get better data up front, protect yourself against fraud, and provide a much better customer experience at the end of the day. It's kind of like, you have to put that carrot in front of the dealer where you're going to make money off of hygiene. This isn't a cost, this is a benefit, right? So as an example, we've actually worked with several of our partners now who are combining what used to be kind of compliance slash anti-fraud capabilities into marketing capabilities. And what I mean by that is, you walk into the dealership now, and what currently happens is, hey, can you enter in your information? Or I'm going to have some sales guy who's not going to be there in 3 months enter in the information. He fat fingers everything. He glosses over something, puts the wrong info in 3 or 4 of the fields. Now your database is dirty, right? What we can do is literally, hey, Brian walks into the dealership. Oh, let me get your information. Just what's your cell phone number? I fire you a link. You click the link. It automatically uses the cell phone record plus some of the data that we have to grab, hey, this is Brian Pash. This is his email address, his phone number, and his home address. That automatically gets pushed into the database. The consumer doesn't touch it. The salesperson doesn't touch it. And I don't have to sit there and be uncomfortable about giving you my data, right? Because I see it on my phone when I'm handing off to you. That's the first thing. But then it goes a step further, right? We're entering a world. So I want to go test drive that car. Okay, cool. Give me your license. And I'm going to go make a copy of it, and then I'll come back. So first of all, you're violating laws left and right in doing that, right? But what if you could actually copy down the license? I'm sorry, scan the license right there at the desk, have that data automatically go into the database, have it be checked against DMV records to verify that what's on the license is cool, right? Is not incorrect at all, and it's all a closed loop. So now the consumer never touches the data. The salesperson never touches the data, and you are almost guaranteed to have the right data entering into the database. Suddenly, your cost for hygiene goes down, right? Because you don't have to clean that data set up.
And Brian, I'm so glad you brought up these 2 use cases, because, man, I've been working on like a dozen new use cases for data. I was working with one vendor who, has all that RDR data within 24 hours, and they are using that data to show dealers where the vehicle was bought. They had the shot, right? The person was in their CRM. The consumer bought somewhere else, to help the analysis of, what's wrong in their sales process? Why am I losing sales to a competitor, right? That used to be all manual, right? You get a report, you'd have to look at this dashboard and this dashboard. With a CDP, you can start bringing in that data, defection data, right?
Yep.
In real time. The data that you're talking about, data collection, identity verification, on-site identity resolution. We haven't gotten there yet, but we will. If dealers realize that if they have a place for customer data that's secure, that has API access, then Equifax can be like an incredible partner in reducing fraud, reducing risk, reducing marketing waste. And then, the bigger area is identity resolution, knowing when customers are back on the website, doing more personalization. These are all kind of table stakes in Fortune 5000 online retail. Deana, correct in just saying like dealers finally have the tools to kind of leverage your billion-dollar data intelligence framework?
No, you're absolutely right, Brian. I feel like when you think about all the touch points that now come through, or the channels that a consumer can come through, and you were just talking about the dealer example. So many, again, shoppers now, automobile, especially like myself, I want to do it all online. So we can still do some of the authentication and verification Brian was talking about. It doesn't even have to be in person if wanted. It can all be, I'm sitting at my home on my couch. I can still scan that driver's license. We do biometrics to make sure that the person holding the license is the person on the license. So we're verifying that license with the DMV, but then we're also doing a real time when the consumer takes a selfie, we can tell that is indeed the person that's holding the ID. So there's so much more cool applications out there in technology the dealers can take advantage of, so that experience can be provided not only in the dealership but online, and they still have the same.
Brian, I've written about something unique that you have, which is your IXI data, and I want to touch on this because I want dealers to realize that they only know what they know. And first-party data or zero-party data is great, but it's still a fraction of the customer's entire picture. I'm going through a move right now. And I know that companies like yours know that I'm moving before I've told anyone, because of things like a mortgage payoff, notice was made. New home insurance is being, purchased. Registration or credit card addresses are changing from, you with me? So IXI data is really an interesting partnership with lending institution, investment firms to really score, and I'll let you describe it, the kind of economic and wealth insights for individuals. But that data, again, was oftentimes like a one-time thing. With a CDP, right? This could be part of audience generation, marketing activation. Let's talk about that IXI data. How could dealers, Brian, use that? If they have a CDP, they have clean data, and they want to know, hey, which of their customers would be able to afford an upgrade or an upgraded vehicle or qualify for a special offer? How would that work in a practical sense with dealer groups having a CDP?
So all of this, it's interesting. First of all, talking about all the different use cases for IXI, we're going to need another hour on the podcast to cover all that. Right? So I'll try to keep this as short as possible. And the reason why is that this is the most fun thing to talk about from Equifax. It's the reason why I joined the company, is that we have this IXI data asset. So everything we're talking about with the CDP, with data hygiene, with authenticating somebody, is in service of enhancing the data so that you can provide a far better customer experience. The one key thing that will kill any deal, unlike if I get your demographics wrong, if I get your psychographics wrong, even your behavior, which is still risky, right? I don't want to get your behavior wrong, but I can get that wrong and still not kill the deal. If you get to the point, though, of signing on the dotted line and find out I can't afford the car, we've all just wasted each other's time.
That's right.
Unbelievably expensive to do that. And it provides now the consumer hates your guts and they're going to go somewhere else to buy a car. And you just don't want to have that happen. So what IXI fundamentally is we manage a consortium with about the top 100 financial institutions in the country. And they share data with each other. And as part of that, sharing that wealth data with each other, we actually are able to take a cut of that and make that available as a marketing asset. So that's what we've done. And what that means is, Brian, you're a longtime veteran. I'm a longtime veteran in the industry. And what happens is dealers got sold a bill of goods at a certain point on something. It made them cynical. And now what they got sold a bill of goods on actually works. But now it's twice as hard to get them to understand that it works this time, right? So we've all, marketing data over the course of, the past 100 years has always been directional. It hasn't been exact, right? Suddenly now you have IX, and that goes, dealers frequently will use income data. Income data tends to be ancient. It tends to be extrapolated, 1 or 2% of the consumer.
Or self-reported.
Yeah, or it's self-reported. And the wild thing is when it's self-reported, something like 20% of the time people will over-report what they earn, right? And about 15% of the time they will under-report. People have no idea how much money they make. It's not even that they're being malicious, it's that they just don't know what the right answer is, right? So what the IXI data set at its core is it's basically allows dealers to understand your affordability. And what that is it's directly measured income data at the household level. So now you know that, Brian and my wife, this is what's available in our household to actually spend. So what we take, our guiding North Star is personalization. But what we do is we take an affordability out view of personalization. The first way to personalize something is to understand not that you can or can't afford the car you're looking at, but what you can afford. So we make it easy for dealers to understand that, listen, this guy's coming in on a car that's going to land at an $800 a month payment. What he's going to be able to do is a $650 a month payment, right? So show him some alternatives that make more sense for him so that he knows, so that we know where he's.
Yeah, provide him a path out instead of embarrassing him or her.
Absolutely. And again, I'll go back. I hate cliches, but the greatest marketing cliche in the history of mankind is Amazon, right? What does Amazon do? Is when you're looking at one thing, they're showing you people like you also like these other two things. So now you have, rather than just one at-bat with Amazon, or Amazon has one at-bat with you, they have 3 at-bats with you to show you 3 different products they know their data indicates you're going to be interested in.
Yep. And I think that's the point of today's podcast interview. As more dealers invest in a CDP, the light will go on. Hey, I don't have to do a monthly hygiene. I don't have to pay for the same thing every 30 days. If I have a CDP, I could create partnerships, determine the cadence of when my data is updated. I have a partner who can help me when emails go bad. I have a partner when data is missing. I have a partner who's proactively advising me when people move or people sell cars. I mean, if they get that piece, then they'll realize they're going to have a technology platform, and that's going to do a good job of unifying the data they have, but there's a lot of data they don't have. And if that was one thing we were able to accomplish today, is that the CDP enables savings and personalization and new revenue gen. Those are the 3 things right off the top of my head, right? Savings, personalization, and new opportunities to generate revenue. Those should be music to people's ears. And the CDP's job is to organize the data it's provided. If it's given crappy data, it will organize crappy data. If it's given clean data, it will organize that. And if it's given enhanced and maintain data, then it can do more use cases. And this is where this partnership comes in to play. Deana, the Modern Retailing Conference is coming up. You're one of the sponsors. It's November 17th, 18th, 19th. You've always been a supporter of dealer education. Mm-hmm. But at this conference, we're really going to be digging in and talking about more real life use cases of data that you provide to automotive OEMs and dealer groups and individual dealers. What are you excited about, like this time, 2024? You feel like dealers are starting to think that customer data management is like not going away. It wasn't a buzzword that was in and out in a heartbeat.
No, I agree. And I'm excited about being back down in Palm Beach with you again, Brian, at the conference for MRC. Yeah, I feel like, dealers today and OEMs and others, I feel like if they're not, I hope they're excited. For me, I'm excited about the future and where this data is going to take them. right? Looking beyond their own four walls, their own DMS, and have third-party relationships, whether it's a tech stack, a CDP. Again, that's going to be the engine, but they're going to need more than their own fuel to activate that, right?
Yes.
As a part of that, partners such as us and other players in the industry that can bring unique assets and data to the table is going to do nothing but propel those dealerships for future growth and opportunity, increased use cases, like you said, and obviously efficiency in their spend, right, or their marketing spend. So I feel like there's so much opportunity, and I'm really hoping that the dealers and the people that are attending the conference in November are as excited as we are. And like Brian, when he was talking about the IXI data, somebody please look me up when you're in Florida, because I would love to sit and talk to you all night about the power of the IXI data.
Yeah, and one thing that I want dealers to realize, for years, you've worked with direct mail companies who say, hey, we do data hygiene, we do, but you had no way of auditing that. You work with social media companies and Google Ads companies say, yeah, we'll take your DMS and CRM data and load it up and match it. But they really didn't tell you that they didn't want to pay for data hygiene and they were afraid to ask you for data hygiene. So whatever they matched, and they just took your money. One of the things that dealers should really understand is, if the dealer understands they're keeping their data clean, then they don't have to guess or assume or hope that their vendors are matching. They don't have to hope or assume that they're not overspending for mail or waste. It's a breakthrough. Brian, when you think of the conference coming up in November, what's one thing that you really looking forward to in regards to the conversations you want to have with dealers?
I think, what I'm looking most forward to, and especially with all my, my dealer buddies, when we talk about this, right, is that they're turning the corner on understanding that the most valuable asset they have is their database, right? And it's not just, I'm going to protect my database. I need to grow it. I need to water it. I need to fertilize it, right?
Yep.
Data requires data, right? And two units of data create three, is always the way that I look at it. So the most exciting thing that I would look forward to speaking to with dealers there at the conference would be regarding, what are you doing with your data now? Do you understand, two things? Do you understand what the problem is that company, vendors who provide CDPs are helping you solve, right? Remember, we spent years in the CRM morass, right?
Yeah,
We're kind of
right.
out of that. That's done, right? CDPs have now taken on that and said, listen, your problem is you have buckets of data. Here it is over in the service drive. Here it is behind the finance manager's desk, and so on, right? And they're just making it so you can mix and match that and make that data work for you better, right? And when there's no way you can't do this, right? And there's no way you can't have a conversation about this and say it's not a good idea. It's not something that's becoming more of a priority for us. So those are the kinds of conversations that are really fun to have, and that I'm sure we'll have plenty of at the MRC.
Well, we have some amazing dealer groups coming who are already deep into their CDP projects. We have dealer groups and individual dealers who are coming to the Modern Retailing Conference to see all the vendors, the who's who in customer data management, enhancement, security, fraud detection, identity resolution. Everyone's going to be there, especially ones that are focused on automotive. And this is going to allow dealers to get the education they need, the insights, and then talk with their peers. So if you're a dealer and you have not got your ticket for the Modern Retailing Conference, let me just tell you, it's at the beautiful O Resort and Hotel in Palm Beach, Florida. November is a beautiful time of the year. The weather is perfect. And the conference sells out every year. It's not a hard sell. It sells out every year. And the sooner you get your tickets, the higher your chance that you'll have a room in the O, because the room block sells out. So I just want to encourage you, if you want an advanced conference that will give you new insights to watch what I said earlier, right? Save money, personalize communication, and then build new revenue opportunities for your business that should match your 2025 business goals, then get out to the Modern Retailing Conference. And more importantly, reach out to the Equifax team, reach out to Brian, Deana. They're going to be there. Get together for lunch, get together for dinner, make some plans just to talk through how you can better partner with their huge investments in data. It's that important. And if this is the first time you're listening to a podcast, you should know that I interview hundreds of automotive professionals, technologists, companies integrating in tier 1, 2, and 3 to help improve the customer experience, to help improve dealership operations, just like the team here at Equifax. And so listen to all the interviews in this series, which is the Road to the MRC, the Modern Retailing Conference. This way you'll know who's speaking, the thoughts, the ideas that will be transpiring. But don't wait. If you're working on a CDP project, you want to do more. You don't want to wait a few months. You want to lock in a path forward with your first-party data. Then just reach out to Deana or Brian. You reach out to them on LinkedIn. Obviously, visit the company website. But more importantly, do something about it. Get it on your agenda to do more with your first-party data. Brian, Deana, thanks so much for being here. I want to thank everyone who's been listening in. And remember, if you're new to customer data platforms, you can go to pashgroup.com, download the Automotive CDP Research Report and the Automotive CDP Data Questionnaire. Both of those free resources will help you move forward. Well, thanks, everyone. I look forward to seeing you. Deana, like I said, it's not a bad place to be in November in Palm Beach. What do you say?
Exactly. I'm already packed.
All right, come on. Thanks for being there. Thanks for supporting dealer education. Thanks for being part of the future of automotive retail with an amazing set of resources for dealers and their customer data platforms. And until next time, thanks for listening in. I'll see you next time on a podcast interview.